Oh. Is everyone okay with media? Yeah. Good morning. I declare open this hearing of the Senate Finance and Public Administration Legislation Committee into the 25-26 Supplementary Budget Estimates. I begin by acknowledging that we are on the traditional custodians, by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land on which we meet, and pay my respects to elders past and present. The committee has set Thursday the 6th of November 2025 as the date by which senators are to submit written questions on notice, and Friday the 28th of November as the date for return of answers to questions taken on notice. I do appreciate this is a shorter turnaround, but it is in reflection of the fact that we have another estimates hearing starting on the 1st of December. The committee proceedings today will consist of parliamentary departments' portfolios as listed on today's program. Under Standing Order 26, the committee must take all evidence in public session, and this includes answers to questions on notice. I do remind all witnesses that in giving evidence to the committee, they are protected by parliamentary privilege. It is unlawful for anyone to threaten or disadvantage a witness on account of evidence given to a committee, and such action may be treated by the Senate as a contempt. It is also a contempt to give false or misleading evidence. The Senate has endorsed the following test of relevance of questions at estimates hearings, and that is any question going to the operations or financial positions of the departments and agencies which are seeking funds in estimates are relevant questions for the purpose of estimates hearings. I remind officers that the Senate has resolved that there are no areas in connection with the expenditure of public funds where any person has discretion to withhold details or explanations from the Parliament or its committees unless the Parliament has expressly provided otherwise. The Senate has resolved also that an officer of a department of the Commonwealth shall not be asked to give opinions on matters of policy and shall be given reasonable opportunity to refer questions asked of the officer to superior officers or to a minister. This resolution does not preclude questions asking for explanation of policies or factual questions about when and how policies were adopted. Witnesses are reminded of the Senate order specifying the process by which a claim of public interest immunity should be raised, and I incorporate the public immunity statement into the Hansard. I remind senators of their obligations under the Behaviour Code for Australian parliamentarians to treat witnesses with dignity, courtesy, fairness and respect, and as is my usual practice, I've provided copies of the code in the room for your reference. An officer called to answer a question for the first time should state their full name and the capacity in which they appear. I welcome the President, Senator the Honourable Sue Lyons, the Clerk, Mr Richard Pye and other officers of the Department of the Senate. President, would you like to make an opening statement?
Chair, what I would like to say is I thank the committee for moving this part of Senate estimates to enable me to undertake part of my international duties. I do appreciate that all senators have had a busy week and a particularly gruelling day yesterday. Well, it was gruelling for me anyway. And I do appreciate thank you for being here on Friday. So thanks.
Thank you. Mr Pye, do you have an opening statement?
I don't, Chair, but I don't know that I am thanking the President for bringing us here on a Friday morning.
Well, we appreciate everybody's time. We will go straight to questioning and we will start with Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. President, I do want to start on that topic of the schedule of Senate estimates. Could you explain for the record what the reason is that you weren't available to appear during the scheduled estimates?
Certainly, Senator Patterson. The presiding officers carry out two international roles. The Speaker is always the lead delegate for the International Parliamentary Union, the IPU, and the President historically is always the lead for the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association. Now, in previous years, when it's fallen during a sitting period or an estimates period, we have simply tried to put together a different delegation. But as I'm a member of the executive of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, I felt it was important for me to undertake that role in the executive role.
When did you... So it was just the one conference, is that right?
That affected estimates, yes.
Yeah. And when did you first become aware that there would be a clash between the conference and the scheduled Senate estimates?
I would have to take that on notice, Senator Patterson, but it was a good couple of months beforehand.
Do you know when your flights were booked to attend the conference?
No, that's a matter that my office takes. I can take it on notice.
Thank you. Because you wrote to the committee on the 17th of September, and I think it was on, well, you wrote to the chair, and then on the 23rd of September, I think the committee was notified about it. Obviously, the schedule for Senate estimates came out in the sitting calendar when it was released after the election on the 22nd of May. So if the conference was scheduled a long time in advance, there would have been plenty of time to notify the committee rather than just 2 weeks or 3 weeks before Senate estimates. Did you advise the committee at the earliest opportunity that you wouldn't be available?
Again, Senator Patterson, they are arrangements made by my office, so I would have to take that on notice, as are airfares. As you would be aware, in relation to airfares, we often book them in advance and then change or cancel them because international airfares are a horrific price.
Sure. Did you consider sending anyone else in your place to represent Australia?
I can't be proxy, Senator Patterson.
So there are votes that you have to cast in person that no one else could cast on your behalf, for example, or...?
Well, that's my understanding. I was also running for a position on the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association, so I've now been elected as the Treasurer.
Okay. Did you consider allowing the parliamentary departments to appear in your absence in the scheduled sitting week?
That's not appropriate, Senator Patterson. Departments always appear with their minister, or in my case, with the President.
It's not strictly true, though, is it? Because it's often the case, for example, if a minister is delayed by a meeting, that a Senate committee can commence before the minister gets to the table.
I can't make a comment on what the government ministers do, Senator Patterson.
Mr Pye, you were a precedent of parliamentary departments or agencies appearing without a minister?
Richard Pye, Clerk of the Senate. I'm not aware of a precedent for that, for parliamentary departments, Senator.
How about government agencies or departments?
There have certainly been some occasions where government departments or agencies have appeared for a short period of time without a minister at the table. It's referenced in Odgers, I think.
Is there anything in the standing orders that prevent the Department of Parliamentary Services or the Department of Senate appearing without the President?
No, Senator. Nothing in the standing orders. It's certainly something that could happen. I mean, there'd be some limitations on the evidence that we'd be able to get, or the scope of questions, I guess, that we'd be able to be helpful with the President not here.
Sure. President, did you consider anyone appearing on your behalf with the committee so that the scheduled estimates could proceed?
Who would you suggest, Senator Patterson?
Well, the Deputy President. The Deputy President, for example?
Well, the Deputy President is not across all of the issues. Having served in both roles, the difference between the Deputy President's role and the President's role are very stark, and there would be most matters that a Deputy President would not be able to answer because they are simply not part of, that is not part of their duties.
President, are you aware of any instance of the Deputy President appearing on behalf of a President in the past?
No.
Mr Pye, is there any precedent for the Deputy President to appear on behalf of the President?
There is, Senator. There was an occasion, I can't drag the year to the front of my brain, but I think it was in the early 90s, when the Deputy President appeared, and that was after the Senate had passed a motion authorising the Deputy President to act as President for a couple of weeks whilst the President was away.
So if the Senate had sufficient notice that the President wasn't available, the Senate could have moved a motion to authorise the Deputy President to appear?
I think that's probably right, Senator, yeah.
We've heard that parliamentary departments can appear without the President. We've heard that the Deputy President can deputise for the President. President, no one understands the scrutiny function and its importance better than you. You are the custodian of this institution on all of our behalf, and I don't think we would tolerate a minister just skipping estimates because they had some travel to do, unless it was, of grave importance to the nation. Do you understand the importance of the Senate having the opportunity to ask these questions in a timely way, in the usual scheduled way?
Senator Patterson, first off, I take issue with the way you've characterised this. Part of the role of the President is to be the custodian of this place in partnership with the Speaker. A second important role of the President is to represent the Parliament at international forums. Of course, I take my role very seriously. I have on one occasion missed being here, and that was on the death of my father. Every other time, all during COVID, I attended every sitting. I think my record of attendance in this place speaks for itself.
Sure. And
process, can I just say that the letter, which I'm trying to recall in my mind now, that was sent to the committee, to me, on behalf of the committee, was a request. It wasn't a "I'm not coming," it was a request, and the committee discussed it. And Senator Sharma ably presented some concerns, and the committee decided to make this choice to schedule another time. At that point, of course, Senator Patterson, you're right, we could have indeed gone to the Senate for an order to have the Deputy President, but that's a historic piece where the committee made a decision to accept that the President was away and that we would schedule another date. So just to be really clear, that the committee made that decision.
thank you, Chair. I have a copy of the letter and I'll table it for the record.
Thank you.
Nothing in the letter is phrased as a request. In fact, I'll quote the relevant part of the letter. Pursuant to our previous discussions, I write to formally notify you of my absence from Australia during the period of 26 September to 13 October due to official parliamentary business obligations overseas. I note the proposed schedule for Supplementary Budget Estimates 2025 falls within these dates. As such, I will make myself available for a spillover hearing at a time that suits the committee. So it's not actually a request, it's just informing the Senate.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Senator Patterson.
And interestingly,
what that reminds me is where it says previous conversations, I did have a conversation with the President's office where they advised me that that was the case. I said, in my opinion, it would seem reasonable just so long as we could get a swift date that suited the committee. And at that point, but obviously it would come to a committee decision, not my decision, but that I was comfortable with that, given the weight of the international travel that the President was undertaking.
Well, I think that's a whole other issue because it's not up to a committee chair to
I just said that.
Make assumptions on behalf of the committee.
But I just said that, Senator Patterson, and I said that is why it went to a full discussion of the committee because it is not my place to make that call. But I did receive the initial request verbally and then followed up by a letter which went to the committee for a full discussion.
What was the date of the verbal request, President? Do you or your office remember that?
Senator Grogan has just said that she had a discussion with my office. Again, I would have to take that on notice. It wasn't a discussion with me.
Thank you. That would be helpful because it would be good to know how much lead time there was prior to this letter being written because, of course, the committee didn't learn of this until the 23rd when it was scheduled, even though the letter was written on the 17th, and we now learn that there were conversations even prior to the 17th. So I think it is important for the committee to know when this was first flagged.
Well, it's not that you now learn, Senator Patterson. It is in the letter.
Yes, but Senator Grogan just confirmed that it was some time before the 17th. In any case, President, to be fair to you, I do understand the importance of the international representation you do on behalf of Australia. I am not someone who thinks that that is not worthy. It is a very important function that you perform. My view, though, is that it's not more important than facilitating the scrutiny function of the Senate, which is the whole purpose of this institution. It is what we do. My view, scrutiny delayed is scrutiny denied, particularly when we have such profoundly serious issues in the parliamentary departments. I mean, there is a NAC investigation into TPS underway. My colleagues are going to pursue a very important issue in the media today that goes to parliamentary privilege, which is incredibly serious. I mean, the Senate must have the opportunity to scrutinise these issues in a timely way, and if the President's not available and doesn't make alternative arrangements for the committee to still conduct its work in a timely way, then I think that doesn't allow us to perform our function.
Senator Patterson, we are meeting in a timely fashion. I have made myself available. The NAC matters have been ongoing for probably 10 months or more. I'm happy to be corrected on that. The committee has been informed at every step of the way since the Speaker and I terminated the Secretary in December of last year on a matter due to a lack of trust and confidence. So the committee has been absolutely kept informed, and it's quite incorrect for you to somehow create this image that scrutiny is being avoided because this matter has been delayed by a couple of weeks. We've also answered questions on notice. We've dealt with OPDs in the Parliament. So the scrutiny from this committee and individual senators has been live and has been respected and has been answered at every opportunity.
Well, except that we didn't meet at the scheduled time, and it's quite possible that we would have prosecuted some issues at that hearing and then needed to schedule a spillover, for example, to further examine those issues. And so we're denied that opportunity by the 3 weeks that have passed since. Anyway, I don't want to overemphasise this. I appreciate your position.
Senator Patterson, I'm just going to advise you that you are at the rotation mark. If any of your other colleagues have questions in this session, now would be the time for them to have the opportunity. Otherwise, because as our
I was just about to wrap
prior,
up, Chair. I just want to put a final question on notice, and then I'm done for the Senate, which is just if, President, you could take on notice the cost to taxpayers of that travel.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
I will also say that this committee is its own master of its own destiny. It can choose another spillover day if it is so required. So none of those matters, Senator Patterson, have some finite date. That is within the control of the committee.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Senator Hume, did you have questions?
I do. Thank you, Chair. I've got some questions for the clerk. Clerk, I know that you discuss with new parliamentarians, particularly new senators, obviously, what the meaning of parliamentary privilege is. I'm wondering if you could repeat that definition in your interpretation to this committee.
Sure. So when we talk about parliamentary privilege, we're talking about the sort of bundle of rights and immunities that attach to parliamentarians, attached to the houses and their committees to enable them to undertake their work. The most recognised aspect of it is the freedom of speech in Parliament, which means that all of you can speak in Parliament, people can give evidence to committees, and that evidence can't be questioned or impeached before the court. So that's a really obvious and well-known aspect of privilege. The other aspect of privilege is goes towards the powers that the Senate the Senate and the House have to ensure the integrity of their proceedings, which stretch to the powers of the two houses to determine contempts. Contempts being conduct which improperly interferes with the ability of the houses and their committees to undertake their functions, and improperly interferes with the ability of members and senators to undertake their parliamentary duties.
Can I ask, just for the sake of clarity, it is only a parliamentarian that can make a claim of privilege, is that right?
That's not quite right, Senator, in that I provide confidential advice, for instance, to senators and members and the President in relation to proceedings of the Parliament. My participation, the participation of committee staff, for instance, in private meetings, all of those contributions are also protected by privilege. So you would normally expect that claims of privilege would be made by parliamentarians, but there might be circumstances in which, for instance, a parliamentary staffer might make a claim of privilege. And that's happened, I think, in the New South Wales Legislative Council a couple of years ago.
How often do parliamentarians, or senators, I should be very specific, come to you for advice on privilege?
On different aspects of privilege reasonably frequently. I think we've got some statistics in the annual report about written advices, and some of them are on privilege. But, you get very, very quick requests, especially as you mentioned from new senators. If I'm in a committee, am I protected? What can I say when I'm before a committee? How does a statute interact with the rights of people to give evidence or make statements in the chamber? Get asked questions around those sorts of things quite frequently. The concept that you raised of making claims of privilege, that's something that has tended to arise, reasonably famously in recent years in relation to the execution of search warrants. And when a search warrant is executed on a parliamentarian's office, for instance, where there's material that might be protected by privilege, so material that has that close connection to parliamentary proceedings. If there's if the search warrant goes to seizure of material of that nature, there's an MOU that the Parliament has with the AFP and the Attorney-General as to how claims of privilege should be raised. What that provides for is that material that is sought to be seized is separated from the other material, usually given to the clerk of the relevant house, to be held whilst a claim of privilege is determined, and it's for the Senate to determine that claim.
Do, other than parliamentarians and staff,
Yep.
do other people seek your advice about privilege?
Occasionally, yes, Senator.
How often?
I probably only a handful of times whilst I've been clerk.
And what type of people would come to you, other than parliamentarians and staff, to ask questions about what privilege is and how it might apply to particular circumstances?
Yeah, so officers in DPS talk to us about privilege. The NAC, we've had a long conversation with the NAC about the development last year of a similar MOU to the one that we have with the AFP, and ahead of that being developed, where the NAC was interested in questions about privilege, their commissioners would consult with us, or their staff and commissioners would consult with us. I've had several conversations with officers of other government departments as well. You know, how does privilege interact with their evidence and estimates and things like that.
And those conversations that you have to people about privilege, are they privileged?
Possibly some of them would be. I certainly treat them as confidential in the same way as when I give advice to senators. It's on the understanding that senators can do what they want with it, try to write advice in a form when it's written, in a form that senators can publish themselves or use in committees to inform how they approach a particular aspect of their work.
If a senator's just going about their normal everyday duties, they're not under a NAC investigation specifically, can they assume that the information that they have on their emails or the documents that they keep on their computers and on our computer systems are privileged?
They should be able to assume that they're held on their behalf, that they're held in confidence. A lot of what you do is not privileged, though. A lot of, you know, if you have correspondence with constituents, if you have correspondence between yourself and the government pushing a policy position that doesn't have that close connection to proceedings themselves, a lot of that material is not going to be privileged in any sense, including that it can be given in evidence before courts, for instance. But you should be able to expect, firstly, that material that is held on email systems, on parliamentary computing, the parliamentary computing network, is held on your behalf in confidence, and that the material that is privileged, if there is some process, as we had with the Conroy matter some years ago, if there's some process whereby that information is sought, that if the information does have that close connection to the proceedings of the Senate, then privilege will be respected in the way that it's managed.
Thank you, Clerk.
That's a quick one last follow-up question on that, Mr.
Sure.
Pye.
I'm just going to say that we had said originally that we wanted to stick to time. We're now over time, which we'll take from the other two sessions.
This will be quick,
just head
hopefully.
right. Yep. You go right ahead.
Mr. Pye, just on your last answer, of course, accept that not all material that we are in possession of is necessarily privileged, but it's not possible to know necessarily, if you're a third party, what might be privileged, because you don't know whether I might plan to raise a piece of constituent correspondence in a Senate proceeding. So really, if I don't have the opportunity to make a claim of privilege about that material, then it should be presumed that it should not be accessed by anyone else. Isn't that right?
I think that that's certainly a really tricky aspect of the protection of senators' information. I completely agree. However, and this was an issue, it's been explored through several reports of the Senate Privileges Committee. This is the difference between the execution of a search warrant, which is a very overt use of an investigative power, where it's easy to say, Senator, they're asking to, the AFP is seeking these documents. They then work with you so that you're in a position to make a claim of privilege. Where you get the difficulty, and this has been addressed to some extent in the last Parliament, is where agencies are using covert powers. In that case, there is now an MOU with the NAC, for instance, and there's an MOU with the AFP that was updated in, I think, May of last year to encompass not just the overt powers like search warrants, but covert powers as well, which requires the agencies who are exercising those covert powers to come to the clerks to discuss the potential that parliamentary privilege might be an issue in relation to material that they're seeking, and to put in place processes to mitigate the risk that parliamentary material is improperly used, including where we think, where the clerks say there's a real risk that privilege is involved here, that material ought to be protected by privilege. It again becomes a matter for the privileges committees of the two houses.
Sure.
We haven't used that part, we haven't got to that point where the use of these MOUs in relation to covert powers have led to a privilege claim that needs to be determined by the Senate or the House. It will be interesting to see how that's managed the first time it comes.
And so just finally then, do we have a MOU between the Parliament and HWL as Ebsworth?
No, Senator.
No, I didn't think so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That wraps up our session with the Department of the Senate. We do appreciate your time with us this morning, and I will now ask the Parliamentary Budget Office to make their way to the table. Welcome, Ms Reinhardt and colleagues from the Parliamentary Budget Office. Would you care to make an opening statement?
So I have an opening statement which outlines all of the services that the PBO provides and indicates that we're looking forward to assisting the 48th Parliament. I understand you're quite time constrained, so I'm happy if you would like me to just table that.
Is everybody happy with that? Excellent. Thank you, Ms Reinhardt. That's very helpful. We will go directly to questions and we'll go to Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be brief so we can get on to DPS because I know there's a lot of interest in that. Could you just briefly outline the process that the PBO undertakes to seek information from government departments and agencies to ensure that your costings are as accurate and robust as possible?
Thanks, Senator Patterson. Sam Reinhardt, Parliamentary Budget Officer. So we have a number of MOUs across most of the major departments and agencies, and we also have a set of protocol documents which were established some years ago. Both of those ensure that we're able to go to departments and ask for pretty much any data or information that they are able to provide us. There are some constraints around national security issues and commercial in confidence. Broadly, we're able to access a very wide range of data, and as I said, models. I think we hold the largest number of models across government because we access models on everything from HEX to PBS to Medicare to tax models and data as well. So we have a process where we will go to departments after each fiscal update, so after my EFO and budget, and we'll ask for what we call a standing information request, where we have a set of information that we ask for regularly, which we know we will need for costing. So things like tax data or the major fiscal indicators data, expenditure data that we know we'll need. And then there's a separate information request process that we go through where I will write to a secretary and ask for a set of information where we need additional information that we haven't otherwise accessed.
So I want to go to the election commitments report, which you published in June, and on one policy issue in particular, on page 18, the ECR states, and I quote, "The total public service wage bill, excluding defence, is forecast to fall by around 3% over the next 4 years, while average wages are assumed to grow by about 10%. The implied fall in the staffing level of around 13% corresponds to 22,500, assuming the composition of staff classifications remains broadly unchanged." What was the methodology that the PBO used to calculate this cut in the public service by 22,500?
So essentially, as you've said, Senator Patterson, we take the data in Budget Paper 1, Statement 9, Note 7, which shows the salary and wages expenses. We then take that. So there's no, to be clear, there's no ASL that's published beyond the current year. We take that information. We then apply the wage cost index, which is Table 7, Table A.7, which is in Budget Paper 3 on page 130 of the latest budget. That obviously shows the expected wage increases over time. We then overlay that over the wage and employee expenses. We take out defence because that's usually got some more volatility in it and less relevant for the policies that we were looking at. And then we apply that to the wages and salaries and work out what the expected or anticipated number of ASL would be remaining.
So do you have a breakdown of that 22,500 reduction in ASL over the forwards? Can you break it down by each financial year for me?
I don't have that with me.
We can certainly provide it on notice.
Mr. Conn, if you could just please state your name and...
Yes. Yeah, thank you. Lewis Conn, Acting First Assistant Parliamentary Budget Officer. Yes, we certainly can provide it on notice. I do believe back in January we did publish a request for budget analysis, which did look at the cost to budget if the ASL levels were held fixed at that time, but that would have been on the MyEFO basis, not the latest budget basis.
Thank you. Yeah, if you could take that on notice, that would be helpful, and provide that on notice. This issue has previously been pursued by Senator Hume, and we have asked Finance about this, and as you know, they dispute or disagree with your characterisation, so I just want to tease that out. Here's a quote from a recent Senate estimates from the department. "The government has made some commitments around the future of the public service, but in terms of what's actually in the budget books, in terms of the estimates, that relates to essentially the wages and salary expenses. Those figures, which are in BP1 on page 271, Statement 9, are an aggregation of departments' assessments of what their departmental expenses they will spend on wages and salaries. At Finance, we aggregate those figures that each department provides us, and that is the best estimation of what their wages and salary expenses will be going forward." And they also said those expenses don't include and never have historically the actual wage increases agreed through the bargaining process, but we do index departmental expenses by wage cost indexes, which take into account both general increases in the WPI and also CPI. How can you help me reconcile the contradiction between your advice and Finance's advice on this?
So I'm not sure there's a contradiction. I guess I'd say Finance looks at the wage and salary bill and publishes that as part of the budget process. They don't publish the ASL numbers, which is why we have had to back them out of the wages and salaries.
So in the ECR then effectively we've got either an unfunded cost in the budget which will have to be met, or those reductions in ASL numbers will have to occur. Is that right?
So I think, so we understand that this is a pretty complex area, and so we have kind of undertaken both in the ECR, and we'll look at future work in this space to provide more clarity around what's actually happening in the budget. There is a chart, and I apologise as I know you won't have it in front of you, a chart in the ECR. Actually, if you do have the ECR, it's on page 18, figure 2.9, 2-9. I think that's the right chart, yeah. Which effectively shows that in every budget since 2000, and probably before if we looked back further, there is a drop-off in departmental expenses over the forward estimates. It happens over and over again. It is a function of the fact that programs roll over and run out and aren't committed. Some programs go on forever. Some programs are committed for, say, a 4-year period, a 6-year period, a 10-year period. And so inevitably, when you look at the forward estimates, those programs run out over time.
Sure.
We have highlighted that in our recent medium-term budget outlook, that is always a pressure on future budgets.
I guess that's the point I'm trying to get to, is that we can't have it both ways. Either those savings are going to be realised in the budget papers and there is going to be that ASL reduction, or government will have to find money to prevent that ASL reduction. So either we can't trust the forward estimates as a true reflection of what the budget position is going to be, because the government won't allow those expiring programs to expire and those ASL cuts to be realised, or we have to accept there are going to be those ASL cuts. Isn't that fair?
I think it's fair to say that this has and will continue to be a pressure in future budgets that governments need to be aware of.
So they will have to find that money if they don't want to have those ASL reductions.
So in any program that is non-ongoing, that's absolutely the case.
Yeah, because that means that those forward estimates will be materially worse than what it was in the pre-election fiscal update.
As we've said, that is the case with any budget over the last 2 decades that we've looked at.
Because in the February estimates, when Senator Hume was asking these questions, the Department of Finance described your modelling as a hypothetical exercise, but it's not really hypothetical, is it?
Well, I guess we are saying this is how we would determine the ASL were we to... Oh, well, this is how we determine the ASL given the wage and salary numbers in the budget. So...
What's the PBO's role in reconciling public statements made by senior ministers during a campaign period with their costings?
So if we've got a publication on our website which highlights the cases where we will kind of step in and make a media statement and talk to members of Parliament or journalists, in fact, if the PBO is misrepresented. That is our role.
Yes, but if
that is consistent with our legislation as well.
Yes, but if a senior shadow minister or minister makes a public statement that, in government we will do X, in government we will do Y, but that's not reflected in their costings, doesn't that have to be reconciled in the ECR?
So in the yeah, that's a good point. In the ECR, where there is a statement that we consider it to be materially different from the PFO, and any statement that is made after the PFO that makes a material difference to that has not been made previously, and Finance and Treasury have not factored into their PFO, we would then do an ECR costing for.
So why isn't there an ECR costing on the government's commitments to maintain ASL levels, which they very clearly articulated throughout the campaign, particularly the Minister for Finance and Minister for Public Service, Senator Gallagher? She repeatedly said the government had no plans to reduce the ASL and in fact attacked the coalition for our proposal to do so.
So I guess in this case, I would say, Senator, that any statement that was made after PFO was also made beforehand. You would have to put the same question to Treasury Finance. That was not seen as a commitment that warranted. So it was not seen as a material commitment that changed the underlying budget.
But I mean,
I'm going to rotate the call in a minute if you
Thank you. I think you previously told Senator Hume in a costing that it would be about $11 billion to avoid this reduction. That sounds pretty material to me. I mean, I think Australians would be very shocked to learn that the government's policy at the election was to cut the public service by 22,000. I don't think any Australian who went to the ballot box would think that. So why hasn't that expense been booked in the ECR against the government's commitments?
The fact that it hasn't been booked in the ECR means we did not see it as a material commitment of government.
So the $11 billion commitment to maintain ASL is not material?
We did not see the statement of government as a material commitment.
Right. Well, I think $11 billion is material, and the government and any party shouldn't be able to have their cake and eat it too. You can't claim the savings from a reduced ASL, but also say you're not going to reduce the ASL or in any other policy area, surely.
So, yeah, so I mean, we didn't see any material change to the budget bottom line following the PFO. We did not see a further commitment of government. So,
right, so it's your contention that the government was transparent about their plan to cut the public service by 22,500 at the election.
So, yeah, I think that's probably a misrepresentation of what our commitment was.
Clarify for me, I don't want to misrepresent you.
So we did not see the government as having made any commitment after the PFO that held the AEPS, that resulted in an increase in spend in the budget on ASL.
So all those times that ministers said we won't be cutting the public service, the Liberal Party, the ones that are cutting the public service, etc., they weren't material statements?
So we had understood the government was not intending to cut beyond what was in their budget, which was consistent with what was put in the PFO and put in the earlier budget.
Before the election, Finance repeatedly said that the government had no plans to have those cuts. Repeatedly. Senator Hume questioned them multiple times.
So if it had been considered to be a commitment, it would have been in the PFO.
Well, I don't think... I can't reconcile PFO with the government statements, right? I mean, does anyone seriously think the government is about to start sacking 22,000 public servants?
Senator Patterson, those are questions for the government.
Well, I appreciate your point, President, but I'm trying to reconcile the statements of the government with the PBO, who has a job to reconcile the public statements made by all of us in a campaign context with the costings that we put out. And this seems to be like a glaring omission from the ECR, so that's why I had questions to the PBO.
I think Ms Reinhardt has addressed your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Dowling.
Thank you, Chair. Question for the PBO. Given you're a relatively young institution still, can you outline what comparative analysis you've done of performance and functions against equivalent budget officers in other jurisdictions, say Canada or the United Kingdom? Have there been any benchmarking exercises or collaborative work with international counterparts or even state counterparts to assess how Australia's PBO measures up in terms of transparency, methodology or impact?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can answer to some extent, and I'll pass over to my colleagues if they'd like to see if they'd like to add anything. We have a look at some of the metrics that overseas parliamentary budget officers, for example, the Congressional Budget Office looks at in terms of corrections and the way they approach their budget costings. We have also, we've spent a lot of time sort of checking in with the Victorian Office. They present their costings in a very transparent way. So we are trying to learn from other examples. We've also engaged with the OECD to some extent as well. All of the parliamentary budget offices around the world have slightly different functions, and ours is quite unique. So we primarily focus on costings in Australia, and many of the others don't do as much on that. So there is some lessons we can take from overseas, but there's also some differences in the way we approach our work.
Okay, thank you.
But it's a good point, and I would love to see us do more, not less of that.
Yeah, and other jurisdictions coming to our PBO to learn from our experience?
Actually, there are a lot. That is a good point. We have a lot of overseas examples where they'll come and visit us and we'll talk through how we work through things. I think we recently had the South Korean delegation. We've had some from the South Pacific as well recently. So.
Right.
Thank you very much for spending time with us this morning. We will let you go, and we will ask the Department of Parliamentary Services and the Parliamentary Service Commissioner, Acting Commissioner, to come to the table. We're going to do... Welcome, particularly welcome to Ms Hinchcliffe, the Secretary and other officers of the Department of Parliamentary Services. There we go. Dr Banerjee, welcome, Acting Parliamentary Service Commissioner. Mr Stephen Fox from the Parliamentary Library. Lovely to see you all. Ms Hinchcliffe, do you have an opening statement?
Oh, excuse me, Chair. Before I do that, I'll do the very important job of tabling the condition of the Parliament House statement, which I traditionally table here, and I understand it has been emailed to you.
Thank you. Ms Hinchcliffe.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yes, I do have an opening statement this morning. Jarla Hinchcliffe, Secretary, DPS. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. I welcome the opportunity to appear before you today to discuss matters relevant to the Department of Parliamentary Services. Before I and senior executive members of DPS respond to your questions, I'd like to take the opportunity to respond to media reporting relevant to the department regarding data search activities. There were factual inaccuracies in the reporting published yesterday about data searches undertaken by DPS, responded to by DPS or requested of DPS. It is disappointing that this has occurred. For absolute confirmation and certainty of the committee, media reporting has centred on whether parliamentarian data has been incorrectly accessed and used. I can categorically confirm that no parliamentarian or parliamentary data has been provided to Dr Fiona Ruffley SC or the National Anti-Corruption Commission in support of any investigation that has been or is being undertaken about an incentive to retire payment made to a former Deputy Secretary of the Department. Despite what was reported in the media, I have not been investigating the propriety of the payment made by the then Deputy Secretary of the Department. That investigation was undertaken by Dr Fiona Ruffley. I have been clear to the committee that Dr Fiona Ruffley was engaged by DPS to establish findings of fact in relation to the ITR payment made by the former DPS Secretary on the 1st of October 2023. I've also been clear to the committee and in public reporting that there is an investigation into a related issue that is being undertaken by the National Anti-Corruption Commission. I have committed to keeping the committee informed about the findings and recommendations contained in Dr Ruffley's report within the bounds of the related NAC investigation. There will be matters that I can't respond to due to the ongoing NAC investigation. Any questions about the NAC investigation should be referred to the NAC. My commitment to the committee has been met. On the 16th of October this year, I provided the committee with a summary of Dr Ruffley's report and the subsequent actions DPS has taken in response. Media reporting has referred to concerns held about the cybersecurity status of one of the department's legal providers, HWLE Lawyers. HWLE Lawyers has provided outstanding support to DPS during Dr Ruffley's investigation and in the department's engagement with other agencies. I can confirm that HWLE Lawyers provided suitable cybersecurity and other assurances to facilitate the provision of information with mechanisms and protocols established to manage data and any related sensitivities. These assurances remain. In terms of data required to support Dr Ruffley's investigation, there was, rightfully, an expectation that her investigation would be conducted with integrity. Not meeting this expectation would not align with parliamentary service values, the expectations of this committee and those in the general public. Failure to ensure the investigation's integrity would have posed a substantial reputational risk to the department. To facilitate a thorough investigation, which was to examine the role of DPS in the ITR payment and calculation process, Dr Ruffley required access to DPS information and data about DPS departmental employees. Internal data searches were initially conducted by staff of the DPS ICT divisions. These searches were undertaken across the APH network and not limited to DPS staff. DPS confirms again that no parliamentarian or parliamentary data was provided to HWLE Lawyers and Dr Ruffley from the initial conducted DPS search. However, there were concerns that the relevant data from the internally conducted searches had been filtered out, excluded or not provided. Dr Ruffley, HWLE lawyers, the NAC and DPS senior officers expressed significant concern that the internal handling of the data request did not successfully identify expected and relevant material. Any risk that this has happened was unacceptable and would have affected Dr Ruffley's ability to carry out her investigation robustly and with integrity. It is not acceptable that internal data searches across the APH network were conducted in this manner. The internal handling by DPS staff of the initial data retrieval process has been subject to investigation. In light of concerns about the internal data searches conducted by DPS, a third-party IT forensic specialist, TransPerfect, was engaged by HWLE lawyers on instructions from and with the agreement of DPS to support the data retrieval process for material relevant to DPS employees and to support Dr Ruffley's fact-finding investigation. Again, Dr Ruffley's investigation was in relation to DPS actions and the involvement of DPS staff. There was, and there remains, no focus on parliamentarians. DPS has seen no evidence, and Dr Ruffley's full report contains no reference to any engagement of parliamentarian in the ITR calculation and payment process. TransPerfect undertook a data collection process on DPS senior staff mailboxes. This process was limited to DPS employees and, unlike the initial search conducted by DPS ICT, did not occur across the APH network. In the data collection process undertaken by TransPerfect, a bulk extract occurred on DPS senior staff boxes. This means that all information held in that mailbox or the Microsoft environment for that DPS staff member against a specified date range was provided to HWLE lawyers. It was subsequently forensically searched to identify DPS staff material and staff engagement of relevance to the ITR calculation and payment. The remaining data was not reviewed for the Ruffley report and has been retained. This may include information about DPS functions performed on behalf of parliamentarians. This information has been quarantined and has not been provided to Dr Ruffley or the NAC. Finally, the inference in media reporting that any investigation was undertaken in order to step into the role of Secretary of the Department of Parliamentary Services is incorrect and deeply offensive. I appreciate that the committee might have further questions in relation to this matter, which the department will answer within the bounds of the related NAC investigation. Finally, before taking questions from the committee, I would like to acknowledge the staff of DPS, who every day, in often challenging circumstances, serve Parliament, parliamentarians and the Australian Parliament House to the best of their abilities. I'm grateful for their commitment and support. I and the Senior Executive of the Department of Parliamentary Services are now available to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms Hinchcliffe. Dr Banerjee, do you have an opening statement?
No, I don't, Chair.
Okay, we will go directly to questions and we'll start with Senator McGrath.
Thank you. Thank you, Secretary, for your statement. I'm assuming there'll be a copy that has been tabled?
Yes, that's right.
I have a range of questions. I do want to ask about the APS employment census with the focus on DPS, but that will come at the end of today. And I do want to thank all the staff in this building for the work they do. I particularly want to thank the staff in ICT. I want to thank those staff who have responded to my call to tell us the truth about dps@gmail.com. Lots of emails have come in, and I'd like to thank those people who have sent in their concerns about the culture in this building, and in particular concerns that have been raised about the processes behind the release of information. Following up a question from Senator Hume, what's your understanding of parliamentary privilege?
Thank you, Senator. So I was also listening to the evidence that was given by the clerk earlier today, and that is my understanding of parliamentary privilege as well, that this is a privilege that belongs to both of the houses in relation to information and material that is used in relation to the business of the houses, including in committees and within the chambers themselves.
So you've said that no parliamentarians' data has been provided to the investigation.
That's right. No parliamentarians' data has been provided to Dr. Ruffley or to the NAC. That's absolutely right.
But parliamentarians' data would have been provided to the law firm.
Senator, there's been, in relation to those searches that occurred across the APH network, no parliamentarians' data was provided to HWLE. In relation to...
Just so and the people at ICT know that I'm a Luddite. So when you say data, that includes emails?
That's right, Senator.
So you can confirm that no email between a parliamentarian and a senior officer or any officer of DPS has been provided to Dr. Ruffley, the law firm, or their subcontractor?
So, Senator, I can confirm that no information from your from your mailboxes. So that's what I mean by a search across the APH system.
No. It's not about my inbox. If I have sent an email to an unnamed staffer in DPS, has that email been provided? Because that email was in the inbox of that staffer.
So, Senator, if you're in relation to the senior DPS staff members whose mailboxes were fully extracted for over a date range, if there was an email in there from a parliamentarian, then that would have been part of the data collection that has gone to HWLE. It has not. All of that material has been quarantined and has not been passed to Dr. Ruffley or to the NAC because it is not.
I get that, but what you've just confirmed is that emails between parliamentarians and senior officers of the DPS have been provided to a law firm who were hacked and have been provided to an ICT company called, is it TransPerfect?
TransPerfect.
So, how many emails were provided to the law firm and TransPerfect?
I'd have to take that on notice, Senator.
Sorry, Secretary. There was a news report last night. You knew that questions would clearly be asked about this issue today. Are we talking about 1,000 emails? We're talking hundreds of thousands of emails here.
And I've said, Senator, I will have to take that on notice. I don't have that information before me.
Well, I would hope, Secretary, that someone could provide that information to you in the remaining time that we have, because the news report last night said it was over 100,000 emails. And 44,000 documents. And what you've confirmed today is that emails between parliamentarians and senior officers in this building have been provided to a law firm who were hacked and to one of their subcontractors. That's correct?
Yes, Senator, that's correct.
Why?
Senator, the information was provided for the searches to be able to be conducted because of concerns, serious concerns, that were raised about the searches that were being conducted by DPS ICT.
This goes back to the definition of parliamentary privilege, doesn't it? So this was on your instructions that these emails were provided?
Yes, Senator.
Did you undertake a risk assessment?
Senator, I considered the risks that were involved, including the risks of it being provided to our lawyers, and I considered issues around the types of emails that might be within senior staff's email inbox, and then also provided advice to our lawyers as to the quarantining of any material, and that it was not to be it was not to go any further. It was not to be used in the Ruckley investigation. And again, it is of no this material. Any material from a parliamentarian to a senior staffer is not of any interest to this investigation.
I'm sorry, I'm going to pull you up there massively, just quietly.
Senator McGrath,
this goes to parliamentary
respectful.
privilege, the parliamentary privilege of parliamentarians. And what the evidence that we've had today, just quietly, is that 44,000 documents, over 100,000 emails have been supplied to a law firm and to their subcontractor, emails and data that are covered by parliamentary privilege that relate to the parliamentarians who have been in correspondence with the relevant officers. Does that not concern you?
So, Senator, I have not made an assessment about whether there is any material in there to which parliamentary privilege relates, and of course that would not be an assessment that is proper for me to make. That's an assessment for the Senate to make, not for me to make.
But we don't. We have found out about this. We have found out about this. Partly through Tell Us the Truth About DPS at gmail.com, because people in this building are worried about the culture within DPS and are worried that the parliamentary privilege of parliamentarians is treated so lightly by the senior management of DPS. And what you've just confirmed is that no investigation or no analysis has taken place of these documents in relation to confidential information that we may have been in correspondence in with the officers concerned. This is a very serious breach of the parliamentary privilege of parliamentarians. Do you not accept this, that there's a breach of the privilege of parliamentarians?
I don't accept that it's a breach of the privilege of parliamentarians, not because I don't respect the parliamentary privilege or I don't see the vital importance of it, but I don't accept that there's been a breach because it is not clear whether there's any material in there that has that parliamentary privilege applies to, and that none of that material has been read. It has been quarantined.
But how do you? Sorry, Secretary. How do you know it hasn't been read?
And
because
I'm going to ask you to wrap up because, as I had said previously, we're going in time blocks, and there are other senators who wish to ask questions, and you're coming up to your 10 minutes.
I'm coming up. So
you've got 30 seconds.
So, President, were you advised about the release of these emails and these documents to a law firm and a subcontractor?
Senator McGrath, I was informed about the data being released. Yes.
Did you raise concerns about the parliamentary privilege of parliamentarians being breached?
Yes, I did.
And what did the department say to you in response to that?
Well, along a similar vein as Ms Hinchcliffe has informed you today. I also met with the clerk about the matter.
Sorry, can I just be very clear? Were you informed before or after it occurred? After it occurred. So no one asked for your permission to do this? You didn't authorise it?
Senator Hume, at the core of this is an investigation by Dr Fiona Ruffley, which this committee has asked question about and been informed about. At one level, these are operational matters for the department, and as a presiding officer, it's not my role to be involved in operational matters, except to the extent where errors occur and errors of this scale. And so I was informed after. It doesn't need my permission. The department, any department, has to be free to manage its own affairs, to deal with staff issues, to investigate staff, to conduct code investigations and so on. That is not my role.
Can you then just provide us on notice?
I've agreed for one last question to Senator McGrath. You're well over your time. There are other senators in the room.
I appreciate that, Chair. Well, just one question.
Please go ahead.
I just want to confirm that these emails are at a law firm that was hacked by the Russians. And I table a statement by the law firm concerned confirming that they were hacked by a Russian-linked group. So this is where the hundreds of thousands of emails from parliamentarians are so-called being quarantined.
Senator, I haven't seen the document that you are about to table, but I do note that the law firm involved has requirements under the deed with the Commonwealth to meet the PSPF requirements in relation to cybersecurity, and we have been provided with assurances that they do meet those, and I have assurance about their cybersecurity.
I do have further questions, but thank you, Chair, for your acquiescence.
Thank you. Senator Steele-John.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm going to take you to the DAR tracker, the Disability Access Review tracker, and its information in relation to the status of recommendations there.
Excellent. I'll ask Mr Lucas to come forward and answer your questions on that.
Thank you. Would you have a nameplate, Mr?
I do.
Okay, so I'll take you to recommendation 33 to begin with. Quote, introduce a wheelchair accessible shuttle service between public transport stops and Parliament House. DPS advises that this is under active consideration. Can you please provide details of what is currently being considered, which public transport stops and where people will get dropped off?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. Jason Lucas, First Assistant Secretary, Corporate Services Division. That is under active consideration, Senator. We have been looking at that for quite a while in conjunction with the National Capital Authority. That recommendation is progressing. As yet, we have not got to a point where we have fully got options available in where that would pick up and drop people off.
Okay, so I just want to clarify, because the department has had this review and its recommendation since the 15th of September 2023, so nearly 2 years now. So let's get specific. What specifically is under consideration by DPS?
I'd have to take that detail on notice, Senator, and happy to provide that.
Okay, please do take that on notice. What work has been done to this point in relation to that recommendation?
Into DAR recommendations?
No, in relation specifically to recommendation 33. So we're talking about I'll say it again, the introduction of a wheelchair accessible shuttle service between public transport stops and Parliament House. You have advised, or the department's advised, that it is being considered, actively considered. So I'm asking you, in the last 2 years, what have you actually done?
Senator Nicola Hinder, Deputy Secretary and Chief Operating Officer. As Mr Lucas has indicated, the department has put an incredible amount of effort into working through the DAR recommendations. With regards to that specific recommendation, we note that we're not only solely responsible for satisfying it in full. The department has been heavily engaged with the National Capital Authority, and hopefully senators and colleagues would recognise the work that's already happened on the forecourt of Parliament House by the NCA in terms of improving accessibility up to the bus points. The next part of that process, as Mr Lucas has indicated, is working through what is feasible to be able to do and when we can do it in terms of introducing that shuttle bus option. I don't have a time frame on that, Senator, but happy to come back to you on notice.
Yeah. So please take on notice what the time frame for that is. I'll note that your tracker says that it is a DPS responsibility, which is why I put it to you.
It's undoubtedly a DPS responsibility, Senator, in terms of being able to have that provision come to Parliament House. Of course, we need to be able to work with the transport companies. We need to be able to work with the National Capital Authority as well.
Now, recommendation 55 introduces separate accessibility lane for people with disability during security screening. The department has said that this has been, you've marked it in your tracker as complete, but that you have deemed a separate accessibility line not feasible at staff entrances. Who made that determination?
Senator, I'll ask Mr Vance Khan to come to the table, who's the head of security as well, who might be able to provide some more detail. But while Mr Khan is coming to the table, the access points to Parliament House, as everyone is aware, the building is 40 years old. They're very difficult to be able to change.
I am very aware of that.
However, we are working through the best way to be able to make sure that Parliament House is accessible not only to members and senators, folks that work in the building, but our visitors that arrive. Mr Khan, have you got any more details in relation to that?
Good morning, Senator. Vance Khan, First Assistant Secretary, Security Division. As the Deputy Secretary just outlined, our entry points and screening points are confined and constrained at this stage, so to move things around is problematic. We continue to look at the accessibility and the availability to move people through and screen people through those points as best possible, Senator.
Yes, yeah. I hear that. Who made the determination that this recommendation was not feasible?
I'll have to take that on notice, Senator.
Okay, because in your explanation, and I'll just give it to you verbatim, you say a dedicated accessibility line was considered and determined not to be feasible at staff entrances as they are single lane entrances. That's not correct. As somebody that uses a staff entrance often, they're in fact double lane entrances. You have the security screening apparatus, and then you have a space next to that apparatus through which I pass nearly every time I use that entrance. So they're not single lane, are they?
You have a dual lane. What you're referring to, Senator, I understand, is the ceremonial entrances which parliamentarians access.
No, I'm referring to the staff entrance next to the ceremonial lane, which I don't often use myself. But yes, so we have the staff entrance with a metal detector, and then next to it a significant space through which I pass because the security screening structure is not wide enough for my chair. So it's in fact a double-laned space.
To put two lanes in there at this stage with the equipment we have, Senator, is not feasible, but we are looking at the variety of equipment that we can use to make that possible.
So, Minister Khan, you made the determination that it wasn't feasible.
No, I'll take that on notice, Senator. No, I did not make that specific.
You just said it wasn't feasible.
At the moment, Senator, with the equipment we have in place, to put it in there at cost and in an expedient manner, we are finding difficulty with the equipment we have, Senator.
Okay. So what have you done to explore different equipment or a modification of that space to enable two lanes?
Senator, we are looking at modifying much of our screening equipment. It is due for update right the way across the House. So with that comes the accessibility issues, which will be forefront of any design or proposals for new capability.
You go on to say in this recommendation explanation section, at the main entrance, two lanes are always staffed by default, which consistently keeps pace with normal rates of entry and allows a flow of people to continue if screening of a person in one line takes a little longer than normal, i.e. to assist visitor accessibility needs, a parent or carer, a pram, or to undertake additional secondary screening measures. Now, you then, after that point, go on to say that if you are what you've described as a large cohort of guests with a disability, you may flag that ahead of time and are able to use a third screening lane to enter the building. Now, again, I use that entrance often, and you are not able to continue a flow of traffic when I move through the screening area because the metal in my chair sets off the sensors in both screening devices, meaning that you cannot have other people moving through that area because you won't be able to assess whether they're carrying prohibited material. At all times, there is a third entrance, a third lane that sits mostly unused, which, in the view of many that have come to me about this issue, is a disability access lane waiting to be utilised. It simply needs to be permanently marked for that use. Have you considered permanently dedicating the third entrance by default as your disability access lane?
And to confirm, Senator, you're referring to the main front entrance.
The main front entrance now.
With the three,
yes.
we're talking about that. We use that third lane when we're aware, and we do see that need at this stage to increase the screening rate for people with accessibility needs, Senator. It's not specifically dedicated at this time, but it's actually set aside that we can draw on it when required.
Well, maybe if we could dedicate it, then people wouldn't have to ask, and also wouldn't have to send an email if something nebulously described as a large cohort, which I can only imagine is more than 2, decided to maybe come to Parliament House without sending an email first, Could I ask you to take that on notice and provide me with precisely when and if you've considered actually making that a dedicated disability lane?
Happy to take that on notice, Senator.
Thank you. You want me to pass back now, Chair?
I do. Thank you, Senator Steele-John. Senator Pocock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your time here this morning. And Secretary, thank you for your proactive engagement on some of the issues I've raised around culture over the last couple of years. I really appreciate it. I've got a few different areas I'm keen to ask questions on. Firstly, on sponsored passes, I was keen to get an update of how many active sponsored passes there are at the moment.
Thank you, Senator. I'll hand over to Mr Khan, and I'll also just note that in the activity report that we provided to the committee ahead of today's hearing, we've also provided information on sponsors passes in there, given your interest in this area.
Good morning, Senator. At this stage, as of the 17th of October, there are currently 1,830 active sponsored passes in the business requirement category.
Thank you. Is there any work underway to establish a public register of who has access to Parliament House?
We're not undertaking any work to establish a public register, Senator.
Okay. Thank you. I've got some questions around parliamentary sports.
Yes, Senator.
And I was interested what processes. Obviously, the Parliamentary Sports Club has been in the news a little bit. They're a separate organisation to DPS, sort of no links at all. I'm interested what processes the Parliamentary Sports Club has to follow to book ovals, courts or other facilities within the parliamentary precinct.
Senator, and thank you for your question on notice on this issue, which we've also answered and is on the website now as well, which sets out in that answer about how facilities are booked, including that all the bookable facilities are able to be booked in accordance with the Australian Parliament House terms and conditions, and it relates to them being booked by various pass holders.
Mm-hmm. And so if you are a sponsored pass holder, you can book a court or a field?
No, Senator. There's
so
pass holders.
Who can actually book a facility at Parliament House?
Facilities can be booked by Parliamentary Service Act employees and staff of members and senators, protocol staff, which is the former members and senators, and state and territory MPs, nominated family members of current parliamentarians, ministerial staff, the media, current members and current senators.
And so how do the Parliamentary Sports Club book facilities? They're not any of those things.
Senator. Just with respect, Senator Pocock, you're a member of the club, so you probably know better than we do.
I'm not actually a member.
I think you were a member. That's
in the last term.
Sure.
In the last term.
I'm assuming you are more aware of how that sports club operates
no,
in DPS.
I'm not,
DPS have told you it's a private entity. It's not anything DPS has anything to do with. I would have thought members would understand and read the small print of whatever it is you do when you join up to the club. I've never been a member of the club, so I have no idea.
So how do the Parliamentary Sports Club book?
Senator, bookings aren't taken on behalf of the Parliamentary Sports Club. Bookings are made by the people who are able to make the bookings.
Okay.
As the Secretary has already indicated, there's a variety of pass holders that are able to make those bookings. We receive bookings from parliamentarians at times. That has also involved activities with the Parliamentary Sports Club.
Okay. So parliamentarians essentially have to book on behalf of the Parliamentary Sports Club.
Senator Pocock, please don't put words into DPS's mouth. Ms Hinder has explained to you how bookings are made. DPS doesn't have anything to do with a private sports club. We are not aware of how it operates or what it does, other than within the confines of what the Secretary has outlined in relation to how you book spaces within this Parliament House.
But should you maybe not be aware, President, as being in charge of the Senate and your role in oversight of DPS, how a parliamentary sports club is booking courts and
My
facilities?
responsibility goes to the policies and procedures that are in place. Ms Hinchcliffe has just outlined who can book a facility and who can't. I am very satisfied with that, and it's parliamentarians and a range of staff as just described. That is appropriate, and that is my responsibility, and that is how you book events, and anything outside of that will be refused because there's a policy, a publicly available policy in place for anyone to read.
Thank you. So that I guess goes directly to my question, which is, just to clarify, the Parliamentary Sports Club has to get one of those people, presumably a parliamentarian, to actually book the court so that the Parliamentary Sports Club can utilise that.
Senator, as I indicated, there are a range of people who can book those facilities. The bookings are taken on behalf of the parliamentarian. If an event is being undertaken by the Parliamentary Sports Club, it's not noted on the booking. It's simply that a booking has been made by a parliamentarian or another person authorised to make that booking.
Just a point of clarity. Would it be the same for like a parliamentary friends group if they were booking a room or whatever?
Senator, anybody that is booking the facilities that are underneath the Health and Recreation Club facilities...
I don't mean the Health and Recreation Club, I mean a parliamentary friends of, or any group that was coming together, that the booking for that space, whatever that space might be, is through one of the parliamentarians connected to it, and that's all that's registered?
Well, Senator, what I'm speaking about at the moment is specific to the Health and Rec Centre. However, for bookings in Parliament House, there are bookings that are able to be made by general public.
Different.
There are bookings that are able to be made by parliamentarians. It depends.
Yeah, no, I don't want to take up
circumstances.
Senator Pocock's time. I would just a point of clarity, really.
Okay, thank you. I'll put a bunch more on notice because I was keen to pick up on some of the questions I asked at estimates. I think maybe 2 estimates ago around security rostering, and obviously know that security staff, because of their base salary, which I think is around an APS 2, a lot of them are making up, I guess, on rostering and overtime and all sorts of things. And there were some real issues a while ago where the rostering was being changed. Has that been, I guess, resolved in a manner where security are satisfied?
Senator, the new roster is now fully operational, but I'll ask Mr Khan and Mr O'Brien to come forward, and Mr Khan's already here, to talk about how that rostering is going.
Senator Vance Khan, First Assistant Secretary, Security. The new roster has undergone a number of changes, and you'll appreciate, as you've noted, that there are a lot of PSL1, PSL2 staff in there. We have designed the roster around the requirements from the new EA, which the department negotiated back in 2024. The intent there is to ensure that we meet the operational requirements of the House, we meet the requirements of the enterprise agreement that was signed up to, and we have as much, I think you'd call it, concern and I think care for how we roster our staff around to give them the opportunities Any roster will not be perfect across a staff of over 200. We ran a number of surveys, a number of engagement groups. We've received a lot of feedback. So trying to get a roster system to fit everyone is probably unlikely. Much of the feedback we've had has been positive, but as you've indicated, there are times with some individuals it doesn't suit their purposes either.
And can I maybe ask about resourcing as well? We saw a security breach, I think it was in the last Parliament. In the last 12 months, has there been an increase in resourcing to DPS security?
No, there hasn't been any increase to resourcing, Senator. We've made sure we've reviewed our processes, our procedures to use the resources we do have to best effect.
Has there been a decrease in resourcing?
I don't believe there's been a direct resource decrease. In terms of funding that we have a fairly consistent funding across the last 2 financial years, to put that. So we are reviewing where we can and where we best need to put our security to ensure the security and safety of the House.
Is that something we should be looking at?
We're always looking at the security, Senator, and from a specialist point of view, absolutely you would like to have a lot more, but we work within our means of what we do have in our allocations.
Has DPS requested more resourcing for the security team at Parliament House?
I think I could pass that over to the Deputy Secretary in terms of overall departmental resourcing. Senator.
So, Senator, like every government department, the department has a fixed amount of appropriation and departmental funding to be able to go towards its activities. We prioritise those activities, which of course go to the benefit of Parliament, parliamentarians and Australian Parliament House. There hasn't been an increase applied to the department's baseline funding for some time. We are having a look as to what we actually do within the budget envelope that we're provided. And of course, that also means having a look at the long-term future for security at Parliament House. I would imagine at some stage in the future we would bring forward what a long-term security plan is going to be.
Sure. I guess
I'll need you to wrap up, Senator Pocock, for a rotation.
Last one, if that's all right. Yeah. It just strikes me as a little bit concerning. We had a security breach. Much was made of it in the chamber and outside the chambers.
Sorry, Senator Pocock, which breach are you talking about?
I remember suspension and all sorts of things happened. I think there's some protesters that got onto the roof or in the last Parliament.
Okay.
Security will...
Yes.
Yes. After reviewing that and the fact that we have security who look after Parliament House effectively on a sort of ASL 2 equivalent, that there wasn't an ask from DPS to the government to actually increase security.
Senator Pocock, before Mr Khan answers that, we also have AFP in this building.
And I understand that.
So they work in concert with one another. In the particular event that you are talking about, I think we, and Mr Khan can describe it better than me, but I do recall there being 2 very different groups of protesters. A lot of work was put in, and I can assure you I personally take the security of this place very, very seriously, which is why when we had to suspend Parliament, the person who came in and disrupted was given an immediate ban. I am confident that the APH and the Parliamentary Security Services work really well together. For example, when Senator Thorpe recently made those statements at a public rally, I immediately contacted, or my team did, Mr Khan, and again sought assurances that the Parliament House was secure and there were no ongoing security risks. So it's something that the AFP and Mr Khan are constantly appraising and working to the best of their ability to ensure that this is an open building, that visitors can come and enjoy themselves, and if we think there's a threat or a risk, we always act immediately. And I want to thank the security staff for the amazing work they do. They do it behind the scenes, they do it professionally and efficiently alongside of the AFP, and I remain confident that this is a secure building. Having said that. You know, from time to time we get individuals in who can disrupt, but they are dealt with in a professional manner.
Thanks, President. And to be clear, my ask here is
Last
for better
question,
resourcing of security and for better pay. And I've asked many times of the AFP and the relevant ministers that we better pay and resource the AFP as well. So that I thank them for the tireless work they do, often under-resourced, often worked off their feet. And that's why I'm asking questions here, because I think that they should be given more resources, not just kept at the same level.
Thank you. We will go to Senator Hume.
Yep. Thank you, Secretary. Can I ask how many data searches have been undertaken and on what dates?
Senator, I will take that on notice for you.
You must have a pretty good idea.
No, Senator, I will take that on notice. I can tell you that there were 3 requests for data searches, but how those were broken up into various searches, I'll need to take on notice for you.
Requests for data searches from whom?
From me.
Right, so you requested 3 data searches.
There was an initial request that was made by an Assistant Secretary that was authorised by me. There was then when it became clear that the information that had been provided by DPS ICT was not, did not provide the information that was expected for Dr. Ruffley. Then I requested a second search to occur, and then the third search was the one that I've spoken about in relation to TransPerfect.
So the 3 that you requested, what dates were they requested?
Senator, I might have to take that on notice. I don't think I have that with me.
Senator, we'll take the precise dates on notice, but I believe one was conducted in June, one was conducted in October, and one was conducted in either late December or early January.
June 2024, is that right? Was the first search?
I believe
that's when
so,
the first
Senator.
request was, Senator, yes.
Your first request?
Yes, Senator.
Who prompted that request? Was that self-initiated?
Yes, it was, Senator. That was in relation to the decision to conduct an investigation in relation to the ITR payment.
So Dr. Ruffley was commissioned to undertake a detailed review of the incentive to retire payment in July.
That's right, Senator. We were in discussions about the investigation, and in order to prepare for the investigation so that Dr. Ruffley could start working on it immediately, when we engaged her, we started work in order to start to put the material together.
So what date did you start with the department, Ms Hinchcliffe?
In February 2024.
You started in February?
Yes.
And you, as a Deputy Secretary,
Yes,
initiated an inquiry or a data search. Did you do that with the authorisation of Mr Stefanik?
No, Senator. I did that on my decision that we would conduct this investigation after a staff member came to me to explain that they had concerns about the way that the payment had been made and about whether all information had been provided in order to calculate the correct amount.
Right. I would like on notice a list of the number of investigations, data searches,
Yes,
the
Senator.
dates that they were initiated, who authorised them, and what the parameters of those searches were, please.
Of course.
And I would also like to ask about that incentive to retire payment. How much was the overpayment?
Senator, let me just...
Senator, the total amount of the payment was approximately $315,000. However, I think you've asked a question about overpayment. Was that correct? Senator, we haven't looked at the circumstances as to whether or not there was an overpayment. As we've indicated in the roughly summary that's been released, there are questions around the calculation of that entitlement. Until such time as it's fully determined that that calculation was done in an incorrect manner, we have not looked at the differences between what would have occurred and what was actually paid.
So, sorry, wasn't that what the Ruffley Review was supposed to look at, whether there was an inappropriate incentive to retire payment? My understanding from the 4-page summary is that there were conflicts of interest that were at play when that incentive to retire payment was being calculated, and that they were not properly declared. Surely though, it did not say that it was inappropriate to have an incentive to retirement payment at all. So therefore, you must have worked out what the proportion was that was inappropriate. What was overpaid?
So, Senator, as I've indicated, we have not looked at that. We are also very mindful that there is an investigation that's being undertaken by the National Anti-Corruption Commission.
So can I ask then, has the overpayment or any part of the incentive to retire payment been repaid, or has a debt been raised?
Senator, I'm happy, I'm comfortable to be able to confirm that there has been no money repaid.
Has a debt been raised?
Senator, a debt at the moment has not been raised, and again I note that the subject is subject to investigation by the National Anti-Corruption Commission. If at the end of that process it is determined that there is a finding that is relevant to the NAC investigation, of course the department will take the decision at that point.
So even if the entire $315,000 incentive to retirement payment was an overpayment, which doesn't sound like what the Ruffley Review has indicated, does that mean that all of these data searches, the contracting of the lawyers, the subcontracting of TransPerfect, I'm interested to know how much the entire investigation will have cost?
We'll take that on notice for you, Senator.
Can I ask, when you appoint your lawyers, or and let's start with HWL Ebsworth, what security checks do you ask of them? What level of security do they need to have hurdled? What hoops and hurdles do they need to go through?
So, Senator, to be able to obtain any form of contracted legal advice, the department approaches the market through the established whole-of-government panel. That whole-of-government panel is maintained by the Attorney-General's Department. There are very comprehensive loops that need to be able to go through to be able to be accepted as a member of the whole-of-government panel. HWLE Lawyers is a member of the whole-of-government panel.
So does anyone need to have gone through criminal checks? Do they need to have security clearances to access those emails?
So, Senator, there are a range of assurances that were provided to the department by HWLE Lawyers in relation to their adherence to the requirements in the whole-of-government panel. There are requirements there in place for them for adherence for the protective security framework.
So I suppose what I'm asking is, do you know that the people that looked at the emails that you provided them have appropriate security clearances?
Senator, I am very comfortable to be able to confirm that the lawyers acting on behalf of HWLE Lawyers for their engagement with the department were undertaking activities for the department and did so with confidentiality and integrity.
And what about the subcontractors, TransPerfect? What insights or do you have into their security clearance?
So TransPerfect, again, is a well-regarded forensic ICT company.
I don't doubt their reputation, I'm just after their security clearance.
I can confirm that the provider that did that data search does retain a security clearance, and that was confirmed before they undertook the data search.
Senator Hume, I just want to clarify, because it's easy for things to be taken out of context, not that I'm suggesting you've done that. When you say looked at, it's data that was held, and there's 3 or 4 search words. So it's search words that have been applied to that data. It's not as if someone has physically looked at every email.
So the search words might be incentive to retire, or they might be secretary, or they might be APSC.
But they could be a range of matters.
They could be president
for the department.
They could be president. What
well, they weren't president, because remember, this is an
So you know what the search words were?
This was an investigation into the ITR payment, which you've had a particular interest in, and I thank you for your interest. And so that's what we're trying to uncover here, is what, if there was an inappropriateness to the way that calculation was calculated, who was involved, who wasn't, the full nature of how it came to be that a payment was made and who was involved in that. So that's really the nature of that investigation.
I understand that entirely, yes, President, but the problem is those search words captured a very wide net. Now, I know that there were a number of emails between me and my staff and between me and a number of other people that would have included words like incentive to retire payment, APSC, Stefanik. These are all things that I would have used in emails. Now, my emails have somehow ended up with a lawyer for them to decide. No, you said that they have been quarantined.
No,
who,
Senator,
who has quarantined them and what?
Let the witness answer the question, Senator
I said that emails from DPS employee mailboxes, not senators or members' emails, mailboxes. So anything that you had in your mailbox was not.
What about my email? What about something that was an email from your staff to mine?
It would depend, Senator, if it was one of those staff members, and this was what my evidence that I gave before. It was certain senior staff members of DPS, their mailboxes over a certain period of time, and then they were searched over those. So it would depend whether or not there was an email from DPS, one of those DPS staff members to your staff member.
So who makes that decision?
Mark, if you would like to wrap up, we need to rotate the call.
Sorry, Senator, who makes...
So who makes the decision about what is being quarantined? Who says, oh no, that's Jane Hume's staff, we must quarantine that email?
So a search has been... very broad search has been done by our lawyers in terms of the searches that were done to make sure that anything that was related to parliamentarians was quarantined.
Who did that search and who made the decision?
So that was done by our lawyers.
And when you say quarantined, what does quarantined mean?
Quarantined means that it's been kept completely separate from...
Where?
It's been kept completely separate with our lawyers, and that it has not been read and that it has not been used in relation to the Rapoli or the NAC investigation.
But your secondary searches took mailboxes in their entirety?
DPS employee mailboxes, yes.
But what if in those mailboxes there was mail to a parliamentarian or to a parliamentarian staff?
And that's the part that I've just explained, Senator.
So we're going to rotate...
I think we're going in circles, but I don't think we're getting any clarity here.
Yeah. Gratuitous comment. Having in a past life been involved in such searches, they're done on basically a technical basis where they're refined. It might be worth getting someone in at some point to explain how they've done it.
Oh, I think
just
we'll
for
be
clarity.
getting somebody in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to be really clear here. And I know my colleagues are on both sides, they're unhappy. The schedule we have in front of us that everybody has seen finishes at 10:40. It's very clear the time allocated to each of the areas, and it's been brought to my attention that people now don't think that there's enough time in here. We will continue until 5 to 11. We will finish up at 5 to 11 because other things are on post this schedule. Parliamentarians are well aware of their rights to undertake other things. Senator Steele-John is,
Chair, just
is
on
rightly
that
upset.
Sorry,
I'll just finish and then I'll come to you because he has more questions than the time on the schedule and is upset that I will not continue through the morning. People have other things that they have scheduled to do. The schedule is released, it is printed, it says finish at 10:40. We will finish at 5 to 11. I think the senators in the room are well aware of the next steps should they require further time. And I leave that open to you. Senator Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Just on that ruling, the standing orders are very clear. 26 subsection 4 says, if a senator has further explanations to seek, items of expenditure shall not be closed for examination unless the senator has agreed to submit written questions to the committee or the committee has agreed to schedule additional hearings for that purpose.
Indeed, that's what I've just said to you. I've just said to you, you're well within your rights to look for an additional time, a spillover.
But until that has happened, agencies can't be released. This is a well-litigated issue in Senate estimates.
And I've said this to Senator Sharma half an hour ago.
Yes, and so what I'm saying is you can't close the hearing at 10:55 unless senators have agreed to schedule an additional spillover hearing, which we've not yet agreed, so that witnesses need to stay.
So just to be clear.
Exactly. And until that issue is resolved, we are entitled to continue asking questions. We can
At
get
the
the
moment,
clerk up.
you were just absorbing time. Senator Sharma, for the last half hour, is well aware of that situation. If you would like to request a spillover, we can talk about it while we
And we may
further
well,
go,
and we may well.
will.
Sorry, Chair, we may
I'm
well.
not shutting anyone down,
Sorry,
Senator
Chair,
Patterson. I've been very clear about that.
I'm sorry, Chair. If you close the hearing at 10:55, you are in breach of the standing orders. We can get the clerk up here to explain that if that's necessary.
And it's all very well, Senator Steele-John. I have said to you very, very clearly that if you wish a spillover, I'm not going to stop you. So, stop inventing situations. I'm happy for the spillover, right? So just request one. But can we get on with the questions?
Chair, in 8 years in this job, and I'll make this a formal point of order, Chair, the way you've just addressed me is not appropriate. I understand that this situation is I'm not sure what you're experiencing right now, but that's kind of not my problem. This is a workplace, and you addressing me in that way is not actually appropriate. So
I meant no
offence,
Senator Steele-John. No offence whatsoever.
At an appropriate volume and engage with me professionally. Thank you.
Thank you. I am happy, as I have said to you, and I have said to Senator Sharma, to have a spillover. So I feel like this invention that I'm trying to shut you down is just a little bit of fun politicking. No. I'm happy for the spillover. I am now going to go back to questions rather than us sitting here and indulging in ourselves.
Point of order, Chair. I think we are going to need to get the clerk's advice because it is very clear that the committee cannot adjourn if senators still have questions until we've agreed to a spillover. We may well seek a spillover, but we've not yet done so, and we are allowed to continue to ask questions to DPS until we've exhausted those questions.
Okay, so I'm going to go to Senator Steele-John to ask some questions because he has questions that he wishes to pursue. We will discuss so as not to take up all of this time. As I've said to you, I'm happy for a spillover. I am not standing in anyone's way.
No, we're not debating that, Chair.
Thank you. We'll go to Senator Steele-John. Senator Steele-John, you have the call.
Thank you, Chair. Okay. Returning to the dignified access review, on recommendation 3055 in relation to security screening, which I was discussing with Mr Vance, given that the department seems to have determined that it's not feasible to action an element of the recommendation or the recommendation itself, who is responsible for editing the tracker published in October so that instead of saying complete, it says in progress or acknowledged, which is that's the accurate reflection of the evidence we've heard. Ms Hinchcliffe.
Senator, the tracker and the communique go through the Access and Inclusion Champions Group for their endorsement of the recommendations that are being closed. The Access and Inclusion Champions Group consists of members from each of the parliamentary departments and the Parliamentary Workplace Support Service, and so it has their endorsement. But I take on board the comments that you've made.
Thank you. So can you confirm that the status will now be changed from complete? Is it not complete?
Sorry, Senator.
Well, you haven't accessed that. You haven't actioned that recommendation.
We'll have another look at that one, Senator. Thank you.
Okay. So taking us now to recommendation 68, install a lower height or adjustable height section at the front pass issue desk. Now, this is something that disabled people visiting the building have raised with me often, that it is too high. I find it difficult, quite frankly, to do the signing that I'm required to do. The DPS's tracker states that this project has commenced. Does it include a height adjustable desk? When is it expected to be complete? By project, I mean the scoping project to address the issue.
Sure. I'll ask Mr Lucas to come forward.
Sorry, Senator, just while Mr Lucas is coming forward, we'll take that one on notice in terms of a time frame. The one part that I would just comment on is that you've made the point that this is the DPS tracker in relation to the Dignified Access Review. It's certainly something that DPS provides Secretariat support, publication support for, but as the Secretary has already indicated, the Dignified Access Review and the response is the responsibility of the Access Inclusion Working Group, which is representative of all departments. The element in relation to the desk undoubtedly falls to us because it has got capital works requirements, it's a furniture requirement, So the DPS would be the one that's taking the lead. I'm not certain about a time frame. I think we'd have to take that on notice, but it's certainly underway and being looked at.
Thank you. Can you provide more information, Mr. Lucas?
Senator, thank you. Nothing further than Ms Hinder's already described. Certainly that is underway. We are looking at it from multiple perspectives, including the building works, the design integrity and look and feel of that adjustment to ensure that it is fit for purpose and in keeping with Australian Parliament House.
So just to clarify, so you have commenced the scoping project, as you indicated in the tracker. You're unable to tell me whether the height adjustable desk is included within the scope of that project.
Senator, I don't have the details of that with me, but I can confirm that it would include a height adjustable desk, because if what we're looking at the moment is being able to make reasonable adjustments for everyone that is coming to the department, that would actively form part of the considerations.
And it is, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to recommendation 71. Provide automated adjustable tables with braille indicators in meeting rooms. Now I note that this is to be implemented in new and refurbished rooms. In August of 2025, DPS opened a trial privacy space on level 1. My understanding is that this was refurbished in 2025. Why does it not include an adjustable table with braille and tactile features?
Senator, in relation to the privacy space, which is under trial at the moment, we took the opportunity to be able to test and to look at how it's being used, to be able to keep the costs as efficient and effective as possible, where we're using furniture that is already held in the department's stores. As part of the review for the future and ongoing use of the privacy space, which will be conducted in Q1, we will be having a look to make sure whether or not it is the Parliament's view that this remains a permanent fixture, and then what it actually needs to be able to make sure it's meeting the needs of everyone that are the building occupants authorised to use the room and able to use the room.
Okay. So,
Senator Steele, we're going to rotate the call if you would just ask your last question.
yes, Chair, I'll go to recommendation 94 related to the lifts in the building. It states that we must, as the Parliament, ensure that door dwell times are at least 8 seconds, and this is marked as complete. Can DPS confirm that all lifts now meet this standard, and when was that last tested?
Senator, I'll take on notice, but I am confident that that work has been completed. I'll take on notice when it was completed. And if my understanding is incorrect, of course, I'll clarify that.
And when it was last tested?
Absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
I'll go a little bit further on that, Senator, if you like. Certainly that was one of the, I suppose, quick wins out of the DAR. Of course, the DAR is 339 recommendations, and I'm delighted to say we've been able to get to 69 of quite meaningful elements here for building occupants. In terms of the elevated door dwell time, that was one of the first activities completed in, I think it was sort of the Q1, so just over 12 months ago.
Okay. Thank you. You can rotate.
Thank you. Senator Patterson, we only have a few minutes and then we're going to adjourn. So
thanks, Chair, but we can't adjourn because that would be contrary to the standing orders.
Yes, we can, because we need to have a private meeting.
Well, that's not an adjournment, but anyway.
Well, it's a suspension, sorry.
Well, we could suspend for a private meeting. We certainly can't adjourn because I still have questions.
Yes, indeed.
On those questions, Ms Hinchcliffe, I want to understand where you get your confidence in HWLE and their contractors. You said that they've provided you with assurances. Have you been briefed by any of our intelligence or security agencies on HWLE and their security practices?
I haven't been, no, Senator.
No, so you haven't sought any advice on their ability to protect the sensitive information they've been given?
I haven't been briefed by our security agencies on HWLE,
right.
no.
Well, by coincidence, I was the Shadow Minister for Cybersecurity during the HWLE data hack, and I was a member of the Intelligence Committee, and I have been briefed by our intelligence agencies, and I do not share your confidence in their data security practices. Have you read the Department of Home Affairs Lessons Learned report into the HWLE Ellsworth data breach?
No, Senator, I have not.
Can I encourage you to read it, because it will tell you that personally identifiable information relating to employees or clients of government entities, including information containing credentials and other documents and other sensitive personal information relating to individuals, was leaked. Potentially sensitive details of projects relating to national security matters was leaked. Information relating to vulnerable persons was leaked. And the agencies affected included the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet, the Department of Defence, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the Department of Home Affairs, the Federal Police, the Criminal Intelligence Commission. They presumably were also given assurances by HWLE that their data would be secure, but it was not. So why are you confident, particularly given you have not been briefed?
Senator Patterson, if I just might add some comments here. Ms Hinder has said that the lawyers were chosen from a whole-of-government panel, which is put together under the scrutiny of the Attorney-General. So I think some of these questions of yours are best directed to the Attorney-General on the sorts of checks and balances that they went into to put various groups on that approved list.
Well, we may well do that, President, but Ms Hinchcliffe has said that she's been given assurances and she's confident that none of our data would have been compromised. I don't share that confidence, particularly because it sounds like sensitive information has been handed over. How can we be assured that, unlike the previous time when these assurances were provided, that the Russian government or the Chinese government or the Iranian government or a criminal network has not again breached HWE's systems?
Senator Patterson, again, in my view, those are questions for the AG. Presumably, the Attorney-General, as you know and you would know from your previous role, approves the list, and so those are questions more appropriate for the AG about what is the scrutiny, what is the requirement. They're not questions that Ms Hinchcliffe or Ms Hinder can answer. Those are questions for the AG.
I'm grateful for that, but the AG is not here and Ms Hinchcliffe has provided assurances to the committee that I'm seeking to test. So I'd appreciate an answer from Ms Hinchcliffe.
I appreciate you're seeking to test, but the criteria you are putting forward goes to the selection of that law firm by the Attorney-General. I'm sure Ms Hinchcliffe can give an answer in relation to her assurances, but the questions you were asking go to matters that the AG
I'm sorry,
would have
President.
signed off on.
I'm sorry, it's not strictly correct, President. Under the Protective Security Policy Framework, agencies still have to satisfy themselves when choosing from approved lists of providers. So I want to understand what Ms Hinchcliffe did to satisfy herself.
Sure, and I think you've misrepresented me there. The extent of your questioning...
I didn't mean to. I just want an answer from Ms Hinchcliffe.
No, I'm not suggesting that you did, but your first set of questions went to matters the AG would have investigated, but of course, Ms Hinchcliffe will answer the questions that you've asked.
And then we will suspend after this answer for a private meeting.
Thank you. So, Senator, I was provided assurances by HWLE about the work that they had done in order to, as a result of the data breach previously, to uplift their systems and to ensure that they were compliant with the PSPF and with cybersecurity requirements.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We will now take a short suspension for a private meeting. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry to have interrupted proceedings in that manner. I have just called you back to adjourn today's proceedings. The committee will reconvene with DPS on Tuesday evening, the 4th of November at 5 p.m. And will run until 7 p.m. So thank you very much for your attendance today, much appreciated. Thank you to Hansard, to the Secretariat. We are now adjourned.